Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are tuning in from. I am Leanne Wynn, and thank you for joining us for another Google Hangouts brought to you by Sharks for Kids in partnership with Exploring by the Sea River Pants. Today, we are going to be hosting Miss Lindsay Graff, who has been working in Fiji teaching shark study college courses and setting up a baby bull shark tagging program. Lindsay's also worked stateside with Dr. Greg Scommel doing white shark research, as well as working in the Bahamas and in Florida with lemon, tiger, and nurse sharks. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Okay, so I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. So like Leanne said, my name is Lindsay Graff, and I've been working as a shark biologist since about 2010. My work has taken me all over the world in pursuit of shark research and conservation work, from great white sharks in South Africa and stateside in Cape Cod, to the Bahamas, to the bull sharks of Fiji, where I'm actually heading back in just a few weeks. So a big part of being a shark biologist is kind of focusing on education and outreach, as you are constantly striving to educate the masses about the vital importance of sharks in our oceans. And you really just want to educate people about why they should support shark research and shark conservation work. The media and the press focuses a lot on the negative attention given to sharks, but with our short talk today, I wanted to focus on a part of the world that you don't normally hear about, but it really is a success story within the shark world. And that is Shark Reef Marine Reserve in Fiji, and specifically Banga Venture Divers, the group that I work with there. So I have a PowerPoint presentation so you guys can see some photos, and then we have some beautiful dive footage of working there with the sharks. I have to apologize, my PowerPoint isn't working that great, so I'm gonna have to show you the presentation just from my desktop. So let me get it up and running for you guys. Okay, so hopefully you guys can all see this right now, and I'm not just talking with a blank screen, but you should be able to see a picture of me down 100 feet underwater on Shark Reef Marine Reserve, surrounded by, on average, about 50 to 60 bull sharks. So before I start talking about Shark Reef Marine Reserve, just because we have a lot of different classrooms joining us today, and I want to make sure that everyone kind of has the same general understanding of why sharks are important to begin with and why we should really care about the research and their conservation. So to me, they are the most beautiful and coolest animals in the world, so it doesn't make sense why anyone wouldn't want to protect and preserve them. But focusing on the biological importance, so we learned that they are very critical parts of a healthy marine ecosystem. Comparative on land, there's a variety of large apex predators that sit atop the terrestrial food chain. So you can see some photos here. These animals can range from big cats like lions or tigers or jaguars to polar bears in the Arctic, Siberian brown bears in Russia, wolves, even dingoes in Australia. And these apex predators on land can even include Nile crocodiles and anacondas in the Amazon rainforest. So it truly makes up a very diverse collection of predators roaming our Earth. It's a little different when you get off land and go under the sea. So unlike on land, the ocean is ruled by one type of animal, the shark. And these sharks have been around for more than 450 million years. During that time, the older ancestors of the sharks that we have today survived over 5 mass extinctions. And this kind of allowed them to adapt and radiate to all these different parts of the marine ecosystem underwater. And very unique shark species are found in very unique systems underwater. So these shark species survive some of the extinction events by simply diving underwater into deeper water than normal and hiding out. And this allowed the shark species to flourish in new habitats without fear of predators or competitors, which is why you can find kind of a various assortment of shark species, sometimes a little ugly looking, in every single type of marine habitat. And that includes hydrothermal vents, which are 2,000 meters below sea level, where you can find blunt-nosed six-gill sharks, goblet sharks, and a few other different species. So just looking at those photos and knowing that every single food chain in the marine world has a shark atop it, we can see that sharks are really an apex predator, or top of the food chain, or at the crown underwater. And as an apex predator, they control the population size of every single animal below them. The removal of apex predators can create a cascade of negative effects felt in every single trophic level below them. And just so you know, a trophic level is kind of each step in a food chain. And without the presence of the highest level consumer, which is usually a shark species, each different level will respectively increase or decrease in population. And this in turn kind of negatively affects the whole ecosystem. So I'm sure you guys have read other things and are aware that, unfortunately, the population of sharks worldwide for almost every single kind of species is drastically declining. And just to spend a minute reviewing why, let me go to the next slide. So essentially, it all comes down to us, humans, unfortunately. So through commercial and recreational fishing practices, bycatch, shark finning for shark fin soup, pollution, and habitat loss, we are essentially already responsible for having removed about 90% of the shark population from the ocean worldwide. And over 100 million sharks are killed by humans, which means that over the course of this talk, which is about an hour, about 11,000 sharks will have died, which clearly will result in negative consequences for all parts of the ocean. And the thing is that almost all shark species mature later in life and are very slow breeders, slow to reproduce and slow to grow, which makes it incredibly hard for populations to recover once they've been depleted. In contrast, so we know that over 100 million sharks are killed by humans every year. About 5 humans die from shark attacks every year, just to include that little fact to contrast everything. 2 of my favorite quotes about why we have to really conserve and protect sharks and why they're vital to our ocean would be from famous oceanographer Sylvia Earle, who said, "You should be afraid if you are in the ocean and you don't see sharks." And my other favorite quote is actually by Peter Benchley, the creator and writer of Jaws, who once he saw kind of the rippling effect, the negative cascade of effects that happened after he created the movie Jaws, he actually spent the rest of his life becoming a shark conservationist. And what he said is, without sharks, you take away the apex predator of the ocean and you destroy the entire food chain. So just summing up what we went over. So now that we've briefly kind of talked about the critical role that sharks play within a healthy ecosystem and how humans are removing these beautiful animals at a rate of almost 11,000 sharks per hour. So let's focus on a part of the world that has succeeded in protecting its apex predators through the use of conservation, research, and ecotourism. So I'm a little biased, but it's home to what many people call the best shark dive in the world, which you can see in this photo here. And it really serves as a template to other parts of the world that wish to protect, preserve, and celebrate sharks in a sustainable manner. And here's a photo that one of my friends took of me on the shark dive, which is where I work every day there. And it's hard to count all of the sharks that are in this photo, but on average, when we're diving there between June to the beginning of September, you can, on a daily basis, find between 40 and 60 bull sharks on this dive. So just to tell you the story, kind of the background of how this became such a amazing template for shark conservation and ecotourism around the world. We're just going to talk about how Shark Reef Marine Reserve came about, because it's a very unique story. So Shark Reef Marine Reserve is located off the southern side of Fiji's largest island called Viti Levu. And Fiji, in case some of you guys don't know, is off the coast of Australia and New Zealand in the South Pacific. And it's made up of about 300 different islands, but Viti Levu is the largest one. So Shark Reef Marine Reserve is on a small reef patch, which is located on a larger fringing reef. And in 2002, the founder of Banga Adventure Divers, Mike Newman, heard about how that part of the reef was really well known for its abundant and regular shark populations. And they think what happened is that fishermen were kind of going to Shark Reef Marine Reserve and they were throwing away fish carcasses or anything that they didn't use after they were done fishing and feeding their families. So that really started to kind of attract lots of different sharks to the area on a daily basis. When Mike heard about this, he dreamed of developing a marine protected area, or an MPA, that would provide protection to the marine resources, but also allow a dive operator that he would run and groups of scientists and conservationists to utilize it as a shark conservation diving site. What's unique in Fiji is that he first had to actually buy the fishing rights from the local villages that traditionally own the area where Shark Reef Marine Reserve was located. So villages in Fiji that are on the coastline are given traditional fishing rights to certain parts of the ocean right in front of where they live. So Mike actually didn't have to work with the government like he would in the United States. He had to work with these two villages to gain the traditional fishing rights, so then he could turn it into a protected shark sanctuary with a no-take zone, meaning someone can't go into that area and fish or take anything out of it. So the two local villages weren't going to be able to fish on that part of the reef anymore, but Mike's dive operation was going to take a marine levy fee from each diver, and that money would be given directly to the villages. And when the two villages agreed to this, in April 2004, Shark Reef Marine Reserve was officially established as the first protected shark sanctuary in Fiji. So just to show you how special Shark Reef Marine Reserve is, I've already talked about the bull sharks there, but essentially within one dive, going all the way down to 30 meters or about 90, 100 feet, you can regularly see up to 8 different shark species, and not just small ones, but very large ones. So this dive includes 40 to 60 bull sharks during certain types of the year. You've got tiger sharks that wander through, tawny nurse sharks, sicklefin lemons, white-tip reef sharks, black-tip reef sharks, gray reef sharks, and silver-tip sharks. The number of bull sharks that are present on the reef kind of fluctuates throughout the year because they move off to different mating sites and pupping grounds from October through December. And this was found out through years of diving on the site and observations done by Mike and the other people who work for him. So they know that large sharks are leaving to mate during these months because the females return back to Shark Reef Marine Reserve from December through February with mating scars. And then visibly pregnant female bull sharks leave the reef around that same time period and return after giving birth in nearby shark nurseries. So when Shark Reef Marine Reserve was established in 2004 by Mike, he started Banga Adventure Divers, named after the island that's right next to Shark Reef Marine Reserve. And just so you know, in Fijian, Q's are pronounced NG. So some people would say Becca, it's Banga Adventure Divers, just so you think I'm not mispronouncing it or anything. So he started Banga Adventure Divers with a few of the longtime residents in the area of local villages who actually have been traditionally diving and feeding the sharks just for pure recreational fun for decades. And he started that with 2 divers named Rusi and Manasa, who were kind of the first shark feeders in all of Fiji. As part of the agreement in the local villages for fishing rights, BAD also trains local dive masters from the same villages, and provides them with not only kind of opportunities for employment within the company, but also certifies them as fish wardens. So it makes them in charge of policing, protecting Shark Reef Marine Reserve from any fishing or poaching, because they have the most incentive to keep the area safe. So BAD was established as an ecotourism organization. It focused on conservation, research of the shark populations, education outreach to its guests and divers, but also to improving the well-being of local Fijians and giving back to the community. And that's really kind of a key component of ecotourism. And you can see here, so kind of covers it up a little bit, but that is a very unfortunately dead shark in the upper corner that actually had all of its fins cut off. And just to talk about why ecotourism is really beneficial to sharks and their conservation and research efforts. So Benga Venture Divers offers an alternative income stream to the villages that have really a positive influence on conservation awareness and support. So instead of these local villages that have the fishing rights to where Shark Reef Marine Reserve is, instead of them going out and fishing for these sharks and, let's say, fishing and finning one and getting $500 for that one dead shark and its fins, but while also depleting the population for future generations, those same villages have incentive to protect those same shark species. So they'll be able to sustainably provide yearly income for as long as they're alive. And in a 2012 report done on shark diving revenue through ecotourism for Fiji, it was learned that Fiji actually brought in $42.4 million simply from shark diving ecotourism trips. Since then, that number has increased even more. So think about all the divers who are traveling to Fiji, diving with these beautiful sharks, also being educated about research and conservation efforts by the operators, and leaving the country with newfound respect and appreciation for these animals. And that's really kind of why ecotourism can be a key factor in not only shark conservation, but also education and outreach. So part of ecotourism is that you also focus on the research. So the money that they're raising by taking people out diving with all these beautiful 8 different shark species is actually going right back into the research that is being done by the lead scientist. His name is Dr. Jörg Brunschweiler, and he's from Switzerland. And he's been leading the research efforts that have been going on Shark Reef Marine Reserve for over a decade. So he established the bull shark tagging program, and which kind of focuses on better understanding bull shark behavior and ecology. And he does this through a range of techniques, from direct observations of just diving with the sharks during the feeds every single day, to pop-up satellite archival tags that will give direct information of, you know, where these sharks are swimming, the depths that they're at, all of that kind of thing. These bull sharks are also being tagged with acoustic tags, and that's where their presence will be recorded by acoustic receivers or listening stations that are placed all around Shark Reef Marine Reserve and neighboring reefs. And what's interesting about this is that the telemetry data provides us with a presence or absence data for individual sharks. So allows us to kind of follow small scale movement patterns by the sharks that really differ throughout the year, seasonally, but also week to week. And most recently, some research has begun focusing on where the pregnant bull sharks are giving birth. And the really cool thing about bull sharks is they have the ability to actually go into brackish or freshwater areas, and they utilize that as a perfect place to give birth, because no other shark species can go in those areas. So the larger pregnant females go into those river systems and they give birth, and they know that their young will be safe there because there aren't as many predators as there are out in kind of the open ocean or on the coral reefs. So since 2014, Benga Venture Divers has been working with different researchers to try to figure out where these pregnant female bull sharks are giving birth, what river systems they're using as nurseries, and trying to gather this information just to kind of put together the full life cycle of where these sharks go, but also so they can protect where these sharks are giving birth. So that's a picture of me holding just a little newborn bull shark pup that we tagged and caught in a river system that is right off of Shark Reef Marine Reserve. And we caught, I think it was 2 different bull sharks that day, and they were incredibly adorable. So through the years of observation that have been going on since 2004 on Shark Reef Marine Reserve, over 150 individual bull sharks have been identified and named by Benga Adventure Divers and Dr. Jörg Brunschweiler. And this is kind of done. I know that just glancing, you're going to be like, oh, all these sharks look exactly the same, but they don't. You really have to pay kind of close attention to any distinguishing marks, scars, or deformity that are unique to each shark. And a lot of times, the deformities that they have or the scars that they have will actually play into what they are named, just so it's easy to name a shark and remember what you're looking for characteristic-wise on the shark. What's been really interesting to find out from all the research that's been done through the pop-up tags and the acoustic tags is that these bull sharks aren't just residents of Shark Reef Marine Reserve. They come from deeper water systems, some trenches and corridors close to Shark Reef Marine Reserve, and are lured in by the baiting. And the feeding that happens on Shark Reef Marine Reserve is done by professional traditional feeders who essentially have to bait these sharks in because they are so nervous around humans that they just won't get close to the divers without a food incentive. So there are regular sharks who turn up to the feeds very frequently, and then there's also more transient individuals that show up a little bit more sporadically. And it's still unknown how large the range is for these bull sharks, but they show a lot of site fidelity because they return every few weeks, months, or even years to Shark Reef Marine Reserve. And those satellite tags will hopefully provide more detailed information about where these bull sharks are ranging from around the islands. So about to show you a video, but just going to really quickly. So some of the other really wonderful things that Benga Adventure Divers does, they also do mangrove restoration. And mangroves are incredibly important to a lot of different marine species. They're used as nurseries, and mangroves are also very important kind of safety barriers for the islands of Fiji from cyclones and large waves. So they go around and they replant mangroves where some have either been mowed down or taken out just for resorts or that kind of stuff. And it essentially what they're able to do by now is actually be a completely carbon neutral company. And what I play into, besides the research, is the education aspect of Shark Reef Marine Reserve. So one of the best ways to educate people about sharks is to get them in the water with sharks, which I know isn't easy. I'm personally from Vermont, so I do have to travel, clearly, if I want to see any sharks. But it's very easy to fear what you don't understand, and sharks are widely misrepresented all over the world. An organization like BAD can take you out to the, the special little slice of reef that they have and facilitate an experience where you learn about these beautiful creatures firsthand. And from observations on your dives to giving talks on the boat about research, everyone who dives on Shark Reef Marine Reserve should essentially leave with a newfound respect and understanding about sharks. And that really creates a ripple effect when they go home and educate others. So I just wanted to end this talk by actually getting to show you beautiful video of why Shark Reef Marine Reserve is so special. So through a decade of collecting research and education outreach, November of 2014, Shark Reef Marine Reserve was actually designated as Fiji's first national marine park. And Benga Adventure Divers is in charge of all the day-to-day management of the area and to make sure that there's no poaching or illegal fishing of the sharks. So those years of research, conservation, and education work allowed them to kind of share why this part of the ocean was important. And here's a little video that was made in celebration of Shark Reef Marine Reserve becoming Fiji's first national marine park. And I have to warn you, some of the music is a little loud. Okay. So I don't think you guys could hear the music on that, which is probably a good thing. It's really loud techno, but hopefully you guys got to see the video of why Shark Reef Marine Reserve is so special and why so much effort has been put into kind of protecting and conserving it. So I think we're going to do question time right now. So go right ahead.
All right. So awesome talk, Lindsay. Funny little technical. I was watching the live because I'm not hearing it, but everything sounded great. Lindsay and I have coordinated a little thumbs up thing. So at this time, we're going to get some questions and answers. So we're going to go ahead and start with Ms. Ward's class. We have some 9th graders from Central High School. We'll take 2 questions, and we'll have Miss Stanlick's class on deck. So go ahead and come on up, Miss Ward's class.
Go ahead. Just stand right in front of the camera. There you go.
So I just asked a question?
Yeah.
Has a shark ever tried to attack you?
No. So a shark has never tried to attack me. But the thing is that as shark biologists diving in the water, we are very aware of kind of safety protocols. And you only really get in the water with any of these animals. It doesn't matter if it's a tiger shark or a small little nurse shark or anything like that, unless there's kind of clear water. So those sharks can clearly see what you are and what you aren't. So these sharks that we dive with, especially the bull sharks, can very clearly see that I'm not a competitor, but I'm also not prey. And, you know, simple diving protocol, like always being responsible about where I am, making sure I'm not getting in between any of the sharks and the food. So you just pay very close attention to not only dive safety protocols, but also the shark's behavior. So luckily, knock on wood, I've never had a bad experience underwater with a shark.
All right, can we have a second question from the class? Go ahead.
When did you decide you wanted to work with sharks, and did you go to college to work with sharks?
So, like I said, I'm from Vermont, and everyone knows that as completely landlocked state known for cows, maple syrup, and skiing. So I was always a little bit of a strange kid growing up because I was in love with sharks and I love the ocean. And I also loved orca whales because Free Willy, the movie, was coming out right when I was growing up. So since I've been really, really young, I even have reports of when I was writing these shark reports when I was in 1st grade and 2nd grade. I've known that I want to work with sharks and study sharks. It's what interests me the most in this world. I love science and I love the ocean. And yes, I did do my undergrad and my master's degree focusing on zoology and marine biology and shark biology. And I'm looking forward to starting a doctorate degree focusing on shark biology even more.
Awesome. So next we'll hear from, we have some 5th graders from St. Paul, Peterborough.
Okay. Why do like little fish swim around the sharks when they're swimming?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So you saw that there's a lot of little fish that are kind of hanging out with those larger bull sharks when they're feeding. And you can see that same kind of thing with gray white sharks, with pilot fish.
Yeah.
What these fish are doing is that they're eating all of the little scraps that are coming off from the feed that the sharks are focusing on. These sharks are not paying any attention to these little fish. It wouldn't benefit them by eating them. There's not a lot of calories. And so it's a little bit of these smaller fish are using the sharks as buddies for helping provide them with some snacks.
Would the sharks eat them at all? Like,
No, unless by accident. You can see that those fish are hanging out very close to the shark's mouths. So it's up to those fish to stay away from the sharper teeth in the mouth when the sharks go to take a bite of the tuna or whatever they're feeding on.
Yeah. What's the biggest shark you've ever swam with?
The biggest shark I've ever swam with. So the bull sharks that we work with in Fiji kind of range between about 7 feet for the younger ones up to 12 feet for the larger adults, where the female are actually larger than the males. But I also work with great white sharks, and I've had the pleasure of diving with 18 and 19-foot great white sharks in Guadalupe off of Mexico.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So now we're going to take some questions. We'll take 2 questions from Ms. Nordberg's class. We have 4th and 5th graders from Riverview Elementary School.
Camera. Come on. Come up to the camera. What was the first shark ever made? Was ever on Earth?
Oh, that is a really good question that I don't think I know the answer to. So there are some scientists that specifically focus on older fossilized sharks and sharks that are extinct. The sharks that we are seeing in the oceans today have been around for about 100 million years, but sharks first appeared on our planet about 450 million years ago. And if you look into what those sharks look like, they are crazy looking. They have crazy teeth and, snouts that are covered with teeth and serrated saws and all of this kind of really cool stuff. And of course, that also includes the megalodon, which has been extinct for about 10 million years or more. So I definitely think you should look into that, because unfortunately I don't know the answer for what was the first shark, but they're incredibly interesting looking if you go and you get a book out about those extinct shark species.
Okay, Aaron, your turn. Quick. Yep, comes down by the camera.
Right here?
Yep.
For now?
Yep.
Did you used to be scared of sharks?
I couldn't hear all of that question. Did you ask, did I used to be afraid of sharks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a great question. I can tell you that the first time I ever saw a shark underwater, I was diving in the Turks and Caicos in college, and I saw what I would consider today to be a really tiny shark. It was a little, probably like 5-foot reef shark. But I didn't feel afraid of it, but I was very apprehensive to be kind of sharing the same space with it, because I didn't understand as much about shark behavior as I do today. No matter how many years I feel like you spend studying sharks, though, you always have a very healthy respect for them underwater. These are wild animals, and we are definitely below them in the food chain, especially when we're sharing the same, marine environment with them. So I don't think fear is the right word, but I think a healthy respect, which I still have to this day, is what I have for sharks when I'm with them underwater.
All right. So now we're going to hear from some 3rd graders from Fremont Intermediate.
Okay, you can talk.
How many species are there?
Of sharks around the world?
Yes.
So there's a little bit more than 450 different shark species around the world. But the thing is that there's actually scientists that are identifying different shark species up to this day. And specifically, they're looking at sharks that are found in deep, deep waters that we don't get to see very regularly. And they're discovering brand new shark species. Just a few years ago, they discovered a brand new deep water shark that they named the Ninja Lantern Shark. And it's found in very, very deep waters. But also, a lot of work is being done on genetics and DNA. And so, even to this day, we're figuring out that there are different shark species that we thought were actually the same shark species. So there's a lot that we just don't know about these animals that we're still finding out to this day.
How many fish do sharks eat in one meal?
Oh, that is a question I don't know that anyone has an answer for. I can tell you the bull sharks that we dive with in Fiji usually have about one or two tuna heads for every shark feed or dive. But that's not really a meal for them. It's kind of like the equivalent of us eating potato chips as a snack. It's just a little snack for them, and it's not really kind of going to sustain them for a few days. Really differs animal to animal.
All right. So last but not least, I see we have a fifth grader who's been patiently waiting to ask their question. So let's go over to Conley Elementary School.
What's the most common shark that you've seen?
Sorry, I don't think I heard all of that question. What was the first part of it?
What was the most common shark you've ever seen?
The most common shark I've ever seen. Well, that kind of differs where I'm working. So in Fiji, you know, we see large numbers of bull sharks, but at the top of the reef, we also see large numbers of white-tip reef sharks and black-tip reef sharks. But in other parts of the world, they're going to have different shark species. So in the Bahamas, in Bimini, we've got lemon sharks, tiger sharks, nurse sharks. And those are probably the most common that we see in a day-to-day business, also including Caribbean reef sharks. So it really differs wherever you're studying the sharks, what habitat you're in, and what part of the world you're in.
Thank you.
Nice and
For about how long have you been working with sharks?
So I graduated from graduate school at the beginning of 2010. And that's kind of when I started working as a shark biologist. But I started studying sharks in college when I was studying abroad, and also during my master's program. I focused a lot on shark biology in the Bahamas and in the South Pacific in Moorea. But for me, I just think they're the most interesting animals out there. And so I get a lot of questions of, well, why sharks? But to me, it's more of, well, why wouldn't you study sharks? Why would you spend any time studying any other animal that's been out there? Because they're the most interesting to me. And I never want anyone to be afraid of them or to misunderstand kind of their importance or why they should care about shark research, shark conservation. Even if you have no interest in actual shark species and kind of diving with them the way that I do, you need to have an interest in protecting our oceans. And in order to ensure a healthy ocean, you need to have those apex predators like the larger shark species available in the ocean.
Thank you.
Awesome. So at this time, we're going to wrap up our hangout. Thank you so much for everyone who is joining us. I know we have some class changes. We had a few people we had to lose because the classes are over. So everyone who's still joining us, we want to give a nice wave and say thank you very much to Miss Lindsay Graff. And again, I'm Leanne Wynn on behalf of Sharks for Kids. Thank you so much for joining us for our Google Hangout. Stay tuned. We have a few more this week. And every month we will be having them. Be sure to check out our resources online. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.